Welcome to another review from TIRIAS Research. This time we're going to be talking about IFA, the big trade show over in Europe. It's kind of like CES for Europe. It covers everything from, PCs and smartphones through washing machines and whatever. Specifically, this is an important year, as you've already seen this year, to talk about AI PCs. And obviously, we're seeing more and more buildup around AI PCs with new ones coming out, with launch of new processors, SoCs supporting AI PCs. And my colleague, the incredible Francis Sideco, was over there in Germany for IFA. So we're going to get a download from him, plus some other stuff that we've gotten over the last couple of weeks. So, Francis, kind of give us an overview of the feeling of AI PCs. And this is the second major event because the first one was Computex. Give us a feeling of how the momentum's building around AI PCs.
Yeah, it was really kind of a rolling t thunder type thing, right? Everybody had and what we're really talking about here, Jim, is the three main NPU based SoC suppliers going into AI PCs. Obviously, NVIDIA has their GPU based laptops and so forth, which are kind of actually a separate class. But if we kind of just put them off to the side for a second, the three main SoCs are, from Qualcomm, Snapdragon X series, both Elite and Plus, but also then AMD has their Ryzen AI, codenamed Strix Point, and then Intel had Lunar Lake. So all three of them had back in Computex had things that they talked about. At IFA, they also had some major announcements, so we can unpack those. But it's clear that the momentum as a whole and in general is accelerating, and there's a lot of great things we can delve into in terms of that race and how that competition is actually extremely good for end users, whether you're enterprise or a consumer user.
Well, and two of these companies we're talking about had pre-events for IFA
Yeah.
to talk about their status and what they're doing in different aspects of their SoCs and the market for AI PCs. First one, which you went to in detail, was from Qualcomm for the X Elite and X Elite Plus. So can you tell us what Qualcomm covered?
Yeah, so obviously they've had their products out in the field commercial with X Elite based and also X Plus based products. So what they announced at IFA was actually an X Plus 8 core variant. So where you have the X Elite for their highest end, you have the first X Plus, which is a 10 core variant, and then you have the 8 core, which is what they announced at the pre-show. So the idea here is that the 8 core is targeted at devices that are going to hit the shelves at anywhere from six to eight, $900. And that gives them full coverage, where you have at the X Elite level, you've got devices from companies like Asus that are hitting the 14, $1,500 mark. And it gives them full coverage of, what they're saying is from an NPU and AI standpoint, it's really a no compromise, up and down the tier. They maintain 45 tops across all three of those tiers. And that's always been the challenge with when Qualcomm was first trying to do the 8CX, for example. They had one product, right? So it was very difficult for their OEM partners to design on that platform and then be able to leverage that and scale it across the full portfolio. What this allows them to do now is solves that problem for them. It lets them take the momentum that they've been able to establish with X Elite and X Plus and give it that third gear and then go basically the full bore of the full all three tiers of their OEM partners.
Did they talk anything about shipments? Because obviously they're the first ones to market, the first ones out there. They talk about anything about total shipments, momentum, whatever? Because obviously
Yeah.
we're already deep into the back to school,
Yeah.
and we're getting very close to the holiday season.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts there?
Yeah, they didn't provide any like exact numbers, like it's X thousands of hundreds of thousands or whatever units. What they did talk about is the momentum, across all of their channel partners and so forth from a consumer, and that they haven't had any major dips or lags in momentum, even with um, or actually, let me rephrase that. They didn't have any major lags that they didn't expect and plan for. So with any kind of release, you're going to have a spike at the very beginning, and then it will taper off a little bit, after that. And including they knew that AMD and Intel were going to be putting out, devices around this time. So they kind of planned for that, and so they're not seeing anything that they weren't expecting, basically. One thing they did talk about, though, is the momentum that they're having in enterprise, and the conversations that they're having there. There's a lot of momentum there. The biggest that's been the biggest question mark with these ARM-based devices is, are they going to be able to break into the enterprise that they need to with full CIO backing, and all the IT management tools and everything that comes with it. And it seems like those conversations are proceeding uh, to their satisfaction. They did say there is still an app gap, but that's closing very rapidly.
Yeah. Well, Intel was the other company that held a pre-IFA event, and I was supposed to be there, but thank you, American Airlines, for canceling my flights.
After
What
after what was it, like 11
11
hours
hours
of
at
of
Dallas Fort Worth.
delay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. After already spending 20 hours, I basically ended up back home. But still, I did get the information. And Intel at Computex actually went into a deep dive for their Lunar Lake, which is their new Core Ultra processor for AI PCs. And it's impressive. It's a drastic change in architecture for them, where they're going to kind of a big little core strategy, at the time, where others are going with a bigger core strategy. The big thing is obviously their little core, their efficiency core is very significant. The fact that they're pushing more and more of the workload towards that core. It's been completely re-architected, as well as a new NPU and integrating their Arc GPU architecture directly into the device. So they're claiming significant performance, and not just performance, but performance efficiency across the board for their product in the CPU, the GPU, the NPU. And, unlike some of the others, they're really focused on total tops. So they're claiming that they've got 120 AI tops for the entire platform, and really trying to push the idea of, you know, uh, using the different cores for different types of AI processing. Now we haven't.
Okay.
Now they're the third ones to come out. Obviously, we've already seen some products hit the market from Qualcomm and AMD. We will not see. We have not seen or have not tested any of the Intel products. And we're hesitant as Tirias Research to post any claims about any of the devices until we get to test them ourselves. But what we can say is all these different devices, based on the Qualcomm, AMD, and Intel-based SoCs, they're all claiming multi-day battery life. They're all claiming significant increases in AI performance to meet at least that 45 tops minimum NPU performance that Microsoft has requested for Copilot. So we're seeing significant improvements, and quite honestly, this is great because we're seeing more competition in the AI PC space in the PC space period than we've ever seen, than we've probably seen in the past 20 years. So it's really interesting to see. We don't have all the data yet. Obviously, we expect some to excel on CPU benchmarks, some on GPU benchmarks, and some on AI benchmarks. And until we have all the data, we're going to kind of hold on to that.
Yeah, before we get into kind of some other thoughts and insights based on these, let's just round it out real quick. AMD, their biggest thing, I mean, obviously with Ryzen AI, they had already previously announced, I think in July, right after Computex, that they were commercial. Okay, so there wasn't really anything new there. What was new though was that Microsoft and AMD did announce, on the Microsoft side, they actually also included Intel, but basically x86 support for Copilot Plus features. Now, to be clear, even though they announced it here at IFA last week, what's going to happen is it's going to be a free update, software update that's going to become available in November for a Windows 11 update. So it's not there yet, but buying a Strix Point Ryzen AI based device or a Lunar Lake device now basically just sets you up from a hardware standpoint so that come November, you'll be able to get those Copilot Plus PCs. So that kind of just rounds out the major announcements along those lines at IFA.
So any PC you buy based on the latest SoCs is going to have Copilot Plus features by the end of the year.
By the end of the year, yeah, at least.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the big thing, as you said, huge competition, Jim, and that's a great thing for consumers and enterprise alike. What we're seeing is a revival of innovation in this area that we haven't seen in PCs in a long time. So if nothing else, that's a good thing. And these early AI PCs what they're establishing is that, hey, you can do all this extra capability while still maintaining usable and viable battery life, right? And who's better or who's worse, we'll find that out as we get all of the devices in. Like you said, we're still waiting for the Intel device, but we'll find out that out to the minutia, what percentage someone's better or worse or whatever. But at the end of the day, they're establishing that, hey, you can do all this headroom extra performance with viable battery life where you're not having to be plugged in every 2 hours. Okay, great. But what it's really going to come down to at the end is how they win the mind share with the ISV developers, because outside of these initial Copilot Plus features, to really make these devices sing and to get the promise of AI PC productivity, you're going to need to go to the third party, app developers, and they're going to have to decide to develop on a Qualcomm device or on an AMD device or on an Intel device. Yes, there's going to be some tools that allow them to port or whatnot, but really there are some capabilities in each of these devices that is only available or each one does better than the others. And to get the software developers to take advantage of those things and get as many apps as possible. We saw this on the smartphone market, right?
Mhm.
With Apple, and then ultimately Google. If you can get app developers to develop on your device, you're going to have a major advantage in terms of pull through from consumers and enterprise. But it's a chicken and egg because
It
app
is.
developers aren't going to do that unless you have volume, and it's hard to get volume unless you have app developers doing it. So I'm really looking closely at what each of these suppliers are doing from an ISV and engagement standpoint.
No, and comparing to the cell phones is a good one because right now, even on the smartphone, despite the fact that we've had several generations of AI on these devices, it's
Yeah.
usually just the OEMs or
Yeah.
the major software companies that are developing those
The
AI
OS
apps. We
platforms. Yeah.
haven't seen the general ISV community really adopt because you've got different NPUs from different companies, and you don't have a constant set of tools.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how that develops. And we should probably reiterate for our listeners here that, the battle right now in PCs is all for the thin and light, the one that's going to
Right
get you the
now. Yeah.
longest battery life, that has the integrated SoC with the GPU, the NPU, everything on it. We're still going to have, so I kind of call that the productivity PC,
Yeah.
mobile PC. We'll still have the enthusiast class that has the discrete GPU that's going to give you, 100x to 1000x possibly performance improvement in AI capabilities. We're going to have desktops, and we're going to have competition across that. Even Qualcomm indicated earlier this year that they were looking at all form factors. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a very competitive segment. This is just kind of the first strike at going after, really that productivity, thin and light piece, mobile PC that consumers like to use.
Yeah, the next 6 months are definitely going to be interesting for that thin and light category. But then as we get into 2025, we definitely see indications. There's no reason why any of these devices should be limited to laptops. You mentioned desktops, and desktops is a whole other, realm on its own. It's got their own, kind of dynamics, especially when you start getting into gaming or workstations or whatnot, discrete GPUs, things like that. You got different kinds of I/O and sockets that you have to support. So, but there's no reason why you couldn't or shouldn't take these product lines and expand them out to desktops, and that's maybe a second or third gear of acceleration in terms of volume shipments for these things.
Yeah. And I'm going to say it, even though I shouldn't have to. I still want 5G connectivity on all of these species.
I
And we are going to see some skews, but it's
Yeah.
still not going to be across the board yet.
So I'm glad you brought that up. I know we're running out of time here, but I'm glad you brought that up. While we were at IFA, Surface Pro did announce that the 5G variant is available, and for people who have never had 5G on their laptops or their PCs, it's a game changer.
Mhm.
Once you do it, you never want to get rid of it. And for various reasons, not the least of which is one, you're not hunting for Wi-Fi, but two, it's part of that privacy and security standpoint because a lot of the use cases for AI PCs on device is because you want privacy, right? You want your software developers to be doing AI code development on device, not having to go to cloud. Well, the other part of that is also then being able to take whatever code that software developer does and get it back to, collaborate with other people. And if you're doing that over an open Wi-Fi, you're losing that privacy. Over 5G, you're not having to worry about VPNs, you're not having to worry about any of that stuff. It's already secure.
And one thing that I think is impressing me is not just on the hardware side, but the software side. I see the rush, especially by Meta, more than
Yeah.
anybody, to create foundation models that you can work around for on-device solutions.
Yeah.
They're really, especially with Llama, Llama 2, now Llama 3, creating multiple different size models to where you can use and giving it away free. So you can use as a foundation model to create new solutions for on device or in the cloud. And I see that. I really think that that's going to be a critical marker to get the rest of the applications involved, the rest of the ISV community involved, especially when they don't even have to go searching for the data. They've got a model that they can work with right out of the gate. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting. I think I look forward. I don't think anybody knows what the killer app is for AI on a PC yet is, but I think that, over the next 12 to 18 months, it's going to be very interesting to see what developers come up with.
This is just the beginning. Your background, Jim, is very appropriate for this. It is a starburst, and we're just at the very beginning, and we're going to see how far it explodes. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting time for sure.
Yes. Well, thank you for joining us. Once again, this is a review of IFA and especially the AI PC news around it. There's a very busy fall coming up. There's going to be a lot of news. So look for more from us and from our partners coming out on a lot of the events and a lot of the news that's going to be coming out around the technology industry. I can say this, it is probably the funnest time I can remember to be in the tech industry.
Agreed.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.